Now we're
Probably
back.
good. I was super pitchy on that one. Now we're back. Okay. Hi, everybody. All right, so I'm going to show you guys soup bones for beef, what they kind of look like. Every single one of them is going to be unique, but you're going to see they're going to have this kind of marrowy looking center here. This isn't going to break down into the soft kind of marrow that you would find spreadable, but it does break down into a really nice broth. If you wish, there's a myriad of ways to start this. You can remove some of the meat off of it and use that for soup meat, or you can just go ahead and stick it in the broth. They're kind of a pain to clean up past what the butcher gives you because there's a whole bunch of cartilage that kind of runs through there. See that? That's the tendony stuff, your fascia, if you want to call it that. And all that does make really good broth. So feel free to do it either way. You can leave it on there, or you can just throw it in whole. Some people also really like to roast their beef before they put it in. If you do scrape the bits from the bottom of the pan after roasting, they do help give a really nice beefy flavor to your broth. So I'll show you just a few more here, so you can see the difference between them. Some have more meat than others, but this one, it looks like you'd be able to slice right through that, but there's more bone right there. So, all right, and then got a chunkier piece. This one has a little bit of a fat cap on it. That could be removed if you wanted, this part right here, but this is a real big piece of tendon, and that's gonna make some amazing broth. So, and then you can also see we're getting into a joint right here. So there's kind of a collagen-y, just a little bit of a surface that's really kind of moist and slick, and that's some of the stuff that's gonna come off and be really nice too. So let's see what this piece looks like. Line these up good. Okay, so then we're getting into the other side of this guy right here. So this is just going to be more of that joint. This one isn't exposed the way that the other one is, but you can kind of peel this back and see that we're looking at more joint there. So, and then this is more that this is not fat. This is tendon. That makes really, really good broth. Okay. All right, so that's it on the beef there. And so what we're gonna do next, let me check on my chicken really quick, be right back. We got this going here. We almost need a little bit more light, but you can see there's some foam that's starting to rise up. You'll see that it's colored. That's because some of the bones that I threw in there had some seasoning on them. Normally it's just kind of a grayish, but the foam is what we're gonna be skimming, so we're gonna let it get going just a little bit better here before we bother skimming, and then we're gonna take quite a bit of that off. All right, and then over here, this is the beef that I've had working up. This has been going a little bit over 36 hours probably. Within the last hour, I have added a whole onion that I quartered, some bits of celery here, and then some carrot. Those are not necessary. However, they do add a nice aromatic as well as a good flavor base. They make it a little less bitter because bones with their mineral density can be quite bitter. So that's just gonna make it taste better. And we're gonna let it go just a little bit longer too. Sorry guys, logistics. Okay, I'm just gonna wipe down really quick here. We're just gonna go over some of the bits that I'm using here just a little bit more. Have you seen any questions about that? No. She's also doing baby duty, so hands up before. All right. Okay, so this is the salt that we'll be using. This will be our primary seasoning for the broth. I use pink Himalayan salt exclusively in my house. I like the price as well as the quality and the depth of flavor that it brings. Pink Himalayan salt contains about 88 different minerals, and it's derived from seabeds that have long evaporated in the Himalayan mountains. So lots of good minerals there, and that's also the pink color. It's just so nice to see on my counter. You can also, if you're looking for natural salts, you can do kosher salt. It's pretty good. I used it for a while. It didn't have the flavor profile that I find. I know that sounds weird. I'm talking about salt and you say that it has more of a flavor than just salt, but it really does. So if you ever get a chance, try a few different salts. Just put a couple grains on your tongue and see what you think, but this is the best one that I found so far. So pink Himalayan, Celtic sea salt, which is a gray salt, is also really good. It actually has a pretty high moisture content though, so part of what you're paying for is seawater with that. And then there's a wide variety of sea salt options that are still really good. They're just not as pure usually as the Celtic sea salt. So it's up to you whether or not you have an issue with that. So when you're seasoning your broth, you're gonna use more salt than you probably think you should. And that's okay. Because again, we're using a natural salt here. It's not pure sodium. Because like I was talking about earlier, your macro minerals, they need to be in balance with each other. And when you're using a natural salt like this that has other minerals combined into it naturally, you're not going to find that imbalance in the same way that you would normally. Not to mention, we humans, we have to have salt in order to run efficiently. And if we don't get enough salt, the problems that arise from that are just as great as the problems that arise from getting too much. Your body is going to tell you how much you need through your taste buds, so always salt to taste. And if you get it a little bit too salty, that's okay. Water it down. It's going to be fine. It might be a little bit thinner than you would like, but at least then you can palate it. So, and then you can always add more vegetables too. Some people also like to do herbs. I don't normally do herbs in mine just because they can very quickly overpower broth. Not to mention the ones that I have available in my yard are ones that very quickly overpower broth. So that's going to be like your rosemary and your thyme.
Sorry, just a second. Hey guys, I locked that door and there's someone trying to get in here.
What?
I locked that door and there's someone trying to get in. Do you mind unlocking it for him?
Okay.
I don't know if he's out there right now.
Oh, there's somebody out there?
Yep.
I'm sorry.
All right, my bad.
All good. Okay. So that's salt. Any questions pop up on that?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. I really wish you guys had more questions. I love questions. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get everything to heat up. I really thought this was going to take longer. Let's see. Human function. The goal is to thrive. This is something that I really try to talk to people about as often as I can. We can make it day to day. And I think most of us feel like crap most of the time, but we can function. And so we consider that to be an okay place to be. I want you to think, have you ever had a day that you felt so amazing that nothing could stop you? And it didn't matter what came around, like what the kids did, like you just rolled with the punches that day, you did good, and you fell asleep satisfied. How many of those days have you had? And what if you could have that day every day? That is the day that we're supposed to have every single day as humans. I firmly believe that. And that's something I've been chasing for a really long time.
Mama.
Yeah, Maggie's gonna come with me. And you know, it's really tough, especially for us as mothers, because we have so many different things pulling at us constantly. It's like, you know, the babies have their needs, we have our needs. You know, for those of us who have a partner at home, we're also balancing their needs as well. And it gets to be a lot. Stress wreaks havoc on the body. And I think we expect a lot of ourselves. And we probably don't ask for help as much as we should. But we should have really good days every day. And so we need to be eating the foods that give us those really good days. And that's one of the reasons that I spend the time making bone broth. It does take 12 to 48 hours to make a good bone broth. You've got to keep it going. It's got to keep boiling. It means that you've got to keep a watchful eye on it, but it's worth it every second. For those of you who can't do that though, whether it be you don't have the counter space to work with, because that's a legitimate issue. If you do need to just purchase it, there's a lot of different places you can do that. I've been actually getting mine from Walmart for a really long time. Their Sam's Choice brand has pretty well gone organic for the most part. And I really like this broth. It doesn't have as high of a protein content as some of the other ones that are available on the market, but it has a good flavor. And it does what I need it to do at my house. Now, I will say that I do add extra things to my commercially purchased broth. I keep gelatin in the house to add to give it a little bit better of a mouthfeel, but also to increase the protein content and to give a greater spectrum to the types of protein that are included. And then I also use what are called collagen peptides. I can give you guys more information on those as well. It's basically collagen that has been taken down to its most pure state, and I add those to, again, add more protein and give it a better spectrum of body healing properties. So as far as what all you can use bone broth for healing, anybody who's got any kind of inflammation, so be that joint, gut, brain, any kind of inflammation in the body is going to be helped by bone broth, because not only do you have the minerals, which your body needs to help perform all the detoxification that is required, but you also have the different amino acids which help with cell structure, so that the cells that are rubbing up against each other, especially in your joints, are properly lubricated. So water is not the only lubricant. There's also fat, and then there's also protein. They all work together synergistically in the body. They're all necessary. And so we want to be using the best versions of those that we can, and we want to be getting them from as rich a source as possible, because it takes a lot to keep our bodies functioning. So that's why I'm such a strong proponent. All right, so I mentioned earlier some of the different books that I like. This is the one that was probably the most helpful in a condensed version for the health benefits, and then also going through how to make it. There's a lot of other recipes in here as well. She's got digestive broth. That's just one of the recipes. She's got a couple different anti-inflammatory tonics as well. A couple different soups. So if you have some more specific issues, or you just want some good recipes for using your broth, this is a really good one. Yeah, see, here's an anti-inflammatory tonic right there. I'll be happy to make copies for you guys. Don't feel like you have to buy it. This is that food history reader that I was talking about. Again, this is actually a textbook, so most of you probably won't want that. But it just it goes into the history of food, and I find that really fascinating. And this also does go into the history of food quite a bit too. She starts out with nutrition, breaking down the different types of foods that we should be including in our diet based on what our ancestors did. She goes fermented vegetables and fruits, vegetable salads, organ meats, which eating nose to tail, that's definitely something we need to talk about at some point too. All kinds of things. And then sometimes she'll break down a commercial recipe over here and know your ingredients. And it's kind of like a guessing game, like which product is that? And you know what? They're all pretty much the same. It's amazing how they end up being different. Because the ingredients are all very, very similar. I've got a few more over here. This is one of my absolute favorites. Whether you ever plan to get pregnant or not, I don't care. Read this book. This was written by Lily Nichols. She's actually a registered dietitian, and she works mostly with diabetic patients, specifically gestational diabetes. And she figured out that she could either keep their gestational diabetes in check or keep them from getting it by working with your lower carb, closer to paleo diets. And bone broth is a really big part of that. But she also talks about supplementation, going into detail on what types of foods for some of the different problems that arise during pregnancy. So that's a really, really good book as far as that goes. Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. This is another textbook, but this one is really good if you're interested in case studies for the different cultures. Basically, this shows the breakdown of your stronger cultures after modern foods like white flour, jellies and jams, sugar, things like that were introduced to these cultures. What happened to their teeth, to their bodies, to their mental states, to their marriages, that kind of thing. And then Sally Fallon, who wrote Nourishing Traditions, which I just showed you over there, she also has the Book of Baby and Child Care. This is a much smaller one, and it goes a lot further in detail for how to nourish your children specifically. So lots of recipes, and then going through what's normal for children as far as growth and development. So it's a really good book. I haven't made it all the way through yet because I always like to read about 6 of them at a time, but it's a really good one. Sally Fallon. All of these are available on Amazon, and some of them every now and then you can get on Thrift Books for a really reasonable price. Thriftbooks.com. Okay, let's go back. I think, oh yeah, we got some foam going over here, guys. Alright. Alright, so this is what I'm talking about right here. This is the foaminess that we want to remove. I'm getting my tools together. Okay. This is impurities and toxins, particulate matter that does not make good broth. It needs to go. And also we're going to have some fat in this too, since that chicken was so fatty. You guys can smell that, right? That's good. Mm-hmm. That's the good stuff. Okay. So it's very simple. We're just skimming it right off the top with a spoon. Don't use your slotted spoon. It will not work. Use a whole spoon. And just pull it off just like that. Super simple. Once you get the main skimming done right here, that's going to be most of it. You might check back in another 15 minutes or so. But the skimming is pretty well done in the first hour. And then once you get all of that off, you can skim the fat to keep if you want. Totally up to you. What I like to do with the chicken fat is put it in my refrigerator. It is not shelf stable. Definitely refrigerated. It will go rancid if you don't. But I like to make my chicken soup with it. So a lot of people just throw their vegetables into boil in a soup. I think that's gross. They get so soggy and it's disgusting. I saute my vegetables for my soups. So I just use the chicken fat as the cooking medium for my saute. Now, since it's chicken fat, it's not as, like, it doesn't handle as well as, say, like some of your, like, olive oil. It's got a pretty high smoke point for being as gentle of an oil it is. Definitely don't use avocado. That one's got a pretty low smoke point. But just do a gentle saute. Don't get it really, really hot, or the chicken fat will go rancid and it'll taste bad and smell bad. You're doing all right, Maggie? Okay. If you want to look back at the pot here, you can see I pretty well got most of the foam off. And you can see everything that's swimming around in there. Here's the foot. These just, they make my day. I love chicken feet. They're so cool. Alright, we're going to give her a little stir. And then, like, there's a piece of back that I pulled off. There's the neck right there floating. They get stiff pretty quickly. Yeah, that's looking good. It's looking good, guys. I love broth. This makes me feel like a pioneer woman, and that's just awesome. Okay, so this is some of the fat skimmings here. It's really yellow. The fat on this chicken was really yellow, but I think a portion of that is also the seasoning that was left on some of those wing bones. So yours may not necessarily be that yellow, but there's a lot of fat. I'm just skimming this off of it. I've got quite a bit still in my fridge from the last chicken that met its demise in my pot. Okay. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. How's everybody doing out there? Those babies holding up okay?
Oh yeah. They found ping pong balls.
Sweet.
Oh boy.
Sweet. Obviously, we're baby friendly.
And she said it's going to maybe stick on the windshield a little bit.
You give her a smile.
This is Magnolia. She is 6 months old. She crawls, she pulls up on furniture and pant legs, and she can also walk on her knees, which is really strange. I don't think my son ever did that, so it's just funny to see her be so much different than him. Alright. Here, I'll have you come back in the pot here. So we're starting to see floaters. Let's see, I had one. Where'd it go? Stuff like Blurg. Come here. Okay. Well, it's hard to see in this light. I apologize, guys. Okay, there we go. So like that's a little floater right there. Not necessary. You can go ahead and just pour that off. Now you'll notice that spoonful had quite a bit of actual broth liquid. This early in the game, it's really okay if you lose some liquid. You're gonna get plenty more good quality broth later on, so don't worry if you think you've pulled off too much. It's as long as you boil it long enough, you're not going to adversely affect the flavor. And I think we've pretty well got most of the fat off here. Well, at least for now. That was a really fatty chicken. There's going to be a lot. You can leave it in there if you want, and just at the very end, you can put it in the refrigerator and let it get hard on the top. And that's easier to remove that way. But if you do that, it makes your house smell really bad. And if you're anything like my husband, that just really bothers you. I just kind of get used to it after a while, so. Because I'm there all the time and he's not. Okay. Alright, so I think that's pretty good for now. We'll leave that to go a little while longer, and then let's come back over and take a look at our beef, see how it's doing. Oh yeah, she's looking good. Alright, so this is pretty well our final boil for this guy. Now, let me show you some of these bones in here. That was off of a big stew piece of meat. That was delicious. You can see, like on the other, this one isn't technically a marrow bone, because otherwise that would have become more of a liquid. Maggie, where are you going? Oh! Okay, let me find one of the marrow bones. I want to show you what that looks like. I know I have one. Pretty sure it's over here. I don't stir my broth very much because there's not really a reason to. Oh, nope, that's a joint. Alright, I'm putting this baby down. Hang on, y'all.
Can you get Max?
You'll notice I do still have meat floating around in here. That meat will not be edible after this. It'll be really gross. So if you've gone for more than like 6 hours, don't bother with the meat. Okay, so this is actually a marrow bone. Tongs. There we go. This is delicious if you mix it with butter and then put it on bread. That's my favorite way to eat bone marrow. It can also be whipped into baby food. Very, very nutrient dense, very high in iron, because what goes through there is actually your heme iron, which is what's necessary for building high quality blood. So don't waste that. That I will definitely use.
I have a question. How
Yes.
would you whip that?
So you could whip it with some coconut oil. Normally what you would do with these, if you wanted to do the whipped, you would actually roast them. You'd do quite a few of them, and then you would take all the fat drippings that came off out of the pan and whip that with the fat drippings. You can just do it with a mixer. That way it gets kind of a mousse-like texture. Add a little bit of salt, not too much. But then it's just a really good baby food. Very high in fat, so that the babies absorb that really well. Very good for the brain. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, excellent. All right, so that's one of those. Let's see, I think I already showed you that bone. Let's see what else we got in here. We're going for a ride. All right, that was another piece of that big one, I think.
Another question.
Yeah.
If you wanted to use the meat, at what point would you take it out?
You would need to take the meat out before probably the 6 to 8 hour mark. Because after that, it gets really fibrous. It loses its flavor. And I don't really know how to describe it past that, but it doesn't taste like meat. Not in the way that we enjoy meat. So just, I had planned to pull it out and then I just never got around to it. But just try it. Actually, no, try it and see what you think. But it's not good. I enjoy my food, and I did not enjoy that. That was a mistake. Oh, here we go. Okay, so you can see this stuff it's starting to get soft. Yeah. When you first put the bones in there, you cannot do that. So this is proof positive right here that we're actually breaking down these minerals and that they're going into the broth. Because I can scoop that. You could eat that if you wanted, but it's not very good. Okay. I think I had a T-bone in here that I wanted to show you. Where are you at, buddy? Well, you can tell I've been making it a long time, so I know what each of the bones are. Okay. Well, oh, yeah, here we go. Okay. So that piece of tendon that I was showing you earlier, that's what it looks like once all the meat and the fat has come off of it, and it's real spongy. Real spongy. You can keep just taking these bones and you can keep putting them in there. You can use them usually up to like 3 or 4 times. After that, they just kind of disintegrate, but keep using your bones. Like, just because you're done with this batch doesn't mean you're done with the bone. See, and then there's some more of that right there. And just look at those fibers. It's just the neatest thing. It just amazes me. All right. The chicken pot is boiling up pretty good over there. All right, so I think we're done swimming. Oh, and here's a leaf. I used that. Oh, no, it's gone now. Okay, it was just funny. I had used some bones from previous enterprises, so there was just a rogue leaf hanging out. Okay. This is officially boiling. We're there. You can see there's no foam left. I think we pretty well got that all in the first round. There is some more fat accumulating around the edges. That's fine. Again, this is a good point if you want to skim that off here within the next probably 45 minutes to skim all that off and be able to keep it. All right. So I think we're to the point we probably want to go ahead and finish up this beef broth right here. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off, and we'll get it out to sit. You think you bring everything for these and then you just don't.
Well, while she's doing that, I'll show you these books again.
Big bowl. We're going to need the big strainer. And we're going to need the broth cloth. Hopefully the light's a little bit better in here. You can kind of see it's you can tell mine's been used for broth probably. It's got kind of a brothy looking stain. This is actually, I had to get a new one. My old one, I had run too much fat through it and it smelled really bad. It didn't matter how much I washed it, it was just gross. So that's why I'm really telling you guys now, strain the fat early.
Now, because I missed this earlier, can you remind us why we use the broth cloth? That's something I've never used.
Yeah. Okay, so like I was showing you with the bones, when you they get soft, right? So then the particulates, they get down into the bottom. If you don't use something a little bit finer than this, you're going to have mineral sediment in your broth, which is not a problem. I just don't care for the way it tastes, and I don't care for how it messes up my soups. Because it gets down in the bottom, and then if I add any cheese or anything like that, because sometimes I add Parmesan rinds, or like I'll put a little bit of Parmesan in some of my meatballs. I don't like the way it all gets gluey at the bottom. It's just really gross. Not my thing. Okay. We're pulling it off. Okay. Let me.
Yeah,
Now, before we go to pouring, I am going to pull out these bigger, easy to remove chunks. Just because I don't want to have anything splashing. Obviously, that's a health hazard. So you'll see the vegetables have gotten soft. You could technically let the vegetables go longer, but they're easy to remove at this point. So for our purposes, that is optimal. All right, and I'm gonna just pull bones and everything out. No splashing. It smells really good.
Yeah, it does. So are you going to save these bones and use them again?
Oh yeah. Yeah, this is probably going to go right back on the counter. Once I get one batch going, it's hard not to keep going for me. Plus, we're about to get another cow here in about a month, so I got to get my freezer cleaned out.
Is he still there?
I had taken a break for a while because I just haven't been spending that much time at home. Been out and about. And then getting my vaginal standing business off the ground. Trying to anyway, so if you're interested in that, I don't know. Okay, I think we're probably good. Oh, no. Oh, it sounded big. Okay. Just gonna put this off to the side. You do run out of counter space at some point. Okay. There's still quite a bit in there. That's okay. Not a big deal. We're just gonna go straight in. Don't be shy. There is some more fat on this, and that's okay too. And I might actually fill up this bowl. So I'm gonna stop and check it. Yeah, I think it did. Oh no. Okay. Alright, so there's the strained broth, what that looks like. There's still a little bit of fat on the surface. Like I said, it's not a big deal at this point. Once I get it in the fridge, that fat will harden for easy removal. It won't go into storage that way. And as far as storing your broth, you can freeze it if you have freezer space. If you have a pressure canner, you can can it. I've canned some broth. I kind of hate to do it that way because it seems like it stresses it a little bit. But it's really up to you. Whatever you have the space to do is what you should do. Or you can keep it in the fridge for no more than a week.
What are some different ways you can freeze it? Like what kind of containers?
You can try it in glass containers. There's always a possibility it'll break. If you're going to do that, make sure that you've got it cooled down really well and maybe even put it into the fridge first. That way you run less risk of the glass shattering. You can also do plastic bags. I hate plastic. I would never do plastic bags. So I try to just use it as I'm making it, which is another reason I like to keep it going constantly because I really do use a lot of broth. But those are probably your best options for freezing. You could, here's another one. You can boil this down and get it really thickly condensed. And then you could do like ice cubes in an ice cube tray. Do it that way. You can boil it all the way down to where it's a really thick sludge. Put it into a dehydrator and then turn it into a powder. And it would be bouillon at that point. And then it will just dissolve into water.
I've done the ice cube tray thing, and I really like that because I can just pull out a few at a time if I need some in a recipe.
Yeah, there you go.
They thaw out quickly.
Yeah. Well, and especially if you're doing a soup, you just pop it into the water, and it's just going to go really quick. And then you get a little bit more leeway on how you flavor your broth too, because if it's just not to the level that you want it, you can always just add more. Okay. We've got that pretty well strained, so we're going to do a little bit more. Finish this out here. I've got enough room in my pot, so I'll just lay that back out.
Now, did you add any herbs
I did not add
to
any
this?
herbs
Is
to
that
this one.
something you do?
Not normally, no.
Okay.
I like to do herbs in the final stage of cooking, so when I'm actually using it in a soup or something, because you never know what mood I'm going to be in with cooking. Now, because I use beef broth in not just like a beef stew, I'll use it in chili, I will use it in my collard greens, and if I'm using it in collard greens, I don't want any herbs in there, because then it's going to outshine the collards. When I'm eating collards, I want to eat collards. Okay, so you can come look at this here. So this is what it looks like in the cloth here. That's all the stuff that would have to get stuck in your mesh strainer, and then you'd have to clean it out. And that's one of the main reasons, because I don't want to spend a ton of time cleaning my strainers. This I could throw in the laundry and we're done. So that got us, that's a good half gallon anyway. We did good.
Yum.
And I'm just gonna take the towel and kind of twist it to get those last bits of juice out. And kind of press it like that. Another thing I love about these flat diapers is they really hold up to abuse well. You can put them under a lot of pressure and you're not gonna have to worry about them tearing. They don't go threadbare easy. Okay. So I am going to do a little taste test, see where we're at with flavor, and then we'll check on salt and stuff like that. See how much it takes to make it taste good. Try to move some of the fat before I taste, because you don't want to just taste all fat. That's just not very indicative of what your broth tastes like. It needs salt, but the base is good, so.
So that's what you mean when you say don't be afraid of salt.
Don't be afraid of salt.
I'm always afraid of too much salt.
This is supposed to taste
and it's
good.
never enough.
And salt is what makes it taste good. So that was probably shy of a quarter cup of salt right there. So we're just gonna stir that in really good. If you can hear it on the bottom, you haven't stirred it in all the way. Yeah, I think we're there. Let's get another little pepper. That's good, you guys. That's really good. You want to try some, Morgan?
Yep. I'll drink it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so how to use made. Don't be afraid to just drink a cup. Seriously. That's one of the best ways to enjoy it, actually. For those of you who don't handle caffeine well, broth is an excellent way to get some nutrition into your morning, or an excellent way to end your day. If you'd really like to go to bed with something hot and you can't justify the sugar that's in hot cocoa or the dairy, or obviously you don't want to brew a cup of decaf coffee, because what's the point?
Do you microwave your broth?
I don't own a microwave. That's up to you. I do everything on the stovetop because I don't like microwaves. Also, I can't fit one in my house and do anything, so very small. All right, how is it?
That is awesome. Yes.
All right. So, and you can taste the carrots and the celery, the onion.
Yeah, you can.
They're definitely there. You've got the flavor. If you cook them longer than the last hour or so, though, they really get lost in the broth. Broth is all done. Amanda, you want to give it a try?
Sure.
All right, let me get you a cup.
Is this beef broth or chicken broth?
This is the beef.
Okay.
Beef.
It's hot.
It is very
We'll let it sit.
You girls gonna drink some broth? You want some?
Okay, mine in a second.
Do you want a little cup, Bentley?
Here, I'll let her have some of this
Okay.
since it's almost cool.
Do you want another cup?
See if it's kid approved. She might want some.
Here, I've got one for you. I have one for you, Lily.
All right, Henley. You want to try this? This is broth. That's what she's been making. Drink it slow. It's kind of warm.
She has clean pants. Good, thank you. Okay. Look, I have it for you. It's very, very hot. We have to blow on it.
Are you blowing on it? I think it's toddler approved.
Yay!
It's almost good.
Did you take some sips?
It's a little warm, but it's cool enough.
All right, did we have any questions come up? No?
No.
All right.
Our audience over here has been commenting on how it smells so good.
Oh, good.
Awesome.
Whoa, don't slosh. Do you want me to blow on it more?
All right. Other ways you can use it and
So
recipes.
definitely soup. Obviously, that's going to be a big one. I like to make gravy with it. If you are gluten intolerant, making gravy is a little bit tougher, and I don't have a good answer for you on how to actually do that. But what I like to do is just make a roux with butter and.
She's asking for more.
Oh, more! Excellent.
She
That one
likes
hasn't
it.
cooled off yet.
Okay.
But
Oh, that's hot.
that one should probably be okay. But just make a roux, which is butter and flour together in your skillet. Get it a little bit bubbly, and then pour your broth right in. It'll thicken up nicely. You can add in mushrooms to make it really good. That's one of the best ways.
It's warm, but it's not hot to drink.
And then you can also do a lot of different tonic drinks, like I was showing you in the cookbooks over there, where you add like turmeric for inflammation, or your antifungal, antiviral herbs like thyme and rosemary. So just a nice health drink overall.
Oh, look at him.
Don't be afraid. I mean, just try whatever you think of. Anything that you would use water in for a recipe, try broth. See what happens. That's my suggestion for where to start, and you'll figure out what works for you and your family. Then it's not worth doing. So I hope everybody enjoyed the video. Questions, if you're trying to do this, definitely reach out to me. You can just message It Takes a Village. I get those messages as well. So anytime you have any questions, and then if you have follow-ups, we can always do more videos in the future. And then we're going to try to get an actual how-to video made, so that we have one that's a little bit more condensed and concise. Well, I guess have a beautiful day, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in. Bye.
Bye. Bye.